Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar where we are going to be discussing solutions for a world that empowers women and allows them to be the best they can be. I'm really excited to welcome the audience to this discussion. Thank you for joining us. If you're here, please feel free to drop us questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. You can tell us when that's a question and we will flag it to be answered by our two wonderful panelists later in the discussion. We're going to be giving time later on for questions to be asked. You can also drop your comments on your own experience in this area and suggestions and advice you have for other women, because we all have to grow in this together. Now, I also want to just take the time to acknowledge Absa for sponsoring this very important conversation, and also for sponsoring and supporting independent media like the Mail and Guardian. And the Mail and Guardian obviously is hosting this webinar in partnership with Absa. I'd like to also acknowledge the new Mail and Guardian acting editor, Sipho Kings, who just took over recently from Khadija Patel. And having worked with Sipho, I can say he's a wonderful editor and journalist, and I can't wait to see how the Mail and Guardian takes off under him and goes on to support women as they have been doing for many years. So now with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce the amazing panel in front of us. A quick word on myself. My name is Varashni Pillay. I'm a journalist and editor and founder of Explain.coza. I was formerly editor-in-chief of the Mail and Guardian and HuffPost South Africa. Joining me today are two women that I'm really excited to learn a lot from. The first one is Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. Thanks for joining us, Prof. I'm going to run through a few of your amazing achievements now for our audience's benefit, not all of them because there's a lot, and then the same with Punki. So
they can Google.
They can Google you. Okay, I'll keep it short. She is obviously, as we all know, the VC of UCT. Before that, she was at UNISA, has held many roles. And I have to just add that she holds a PhD in mathematics education, such an important thing in our country. And she is a highly regarded B1 NRF-rated scientist with over 80 research papers and 5 edited volumes published. Talk about Black excellence and women Black excellence. Lots of community work, has won the Order of the Baobab Silver from the President, and has also founded an Adopt a Learner Foundation to help learners who don't have the means to get the education. Plus, she's on the board of the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. I hope that didn't embarrass you too much, Prof, but I just had to sing your praises a little bit. And moving on to another extraordinary woman, Punki Modise is the Chief Financial Officer for the Absa Retail and Business Banking, which boasts an annual turnover of 42.5 billion rand. That's a lot of responsibility, Punki. Punki, I understand that you represent 65% of Absa in terms of CFO. Like, that's a huge responsibility. Is that correct? 65% of the Absa group. Okay, so that's where she is. She's got a background from a number of organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers, FedSure, Standard Bank, and Absa, of course, where she is now. What I really like about Punki is that she's really focused on using banking to make the economy more sustainable and accessible for those who need it, and to create change and economic access. And I think that's really important, that in our positions, we use what we're doing in our industries to allow for greater access and greater economic growth. So, Punki, thank you for driving that work. There's a lot more about Punki you could read about. She serves on several boards. She's a keen advocate for gender balance. She is the chairperson of the Absa's Africa Women in Finance community, which is quite germane to our conversation. Plus, she headed the Diversity Forum in Absa CARD, driving a strong collaborative engagement agenda. Her passion lies in empowering people in being the best version of themselves, and I believe that she's going to help us do just that in this conversation. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to the audience for joining us too. And remember, you can drop those questions below in the chat box. So I want to start off with a few stories. I think that's the way human beings best identify with issues and how we can make change happen. I believe stories, if told right, can change the world. So I want to start off with Professor Phakeng. What is your experience of, this is a huge topic we're talking about, gender inequality, how that leads to gender-based violence. What is your experience, even as a very powerful woman, of this particular issue? Have you experienced any kind of gender discrimination, and how did you deal with it?
Thanks, Varashni, and thanks to Mail and Guardian and Absa for including me in the panel. Here's the thing. We are here today exploring solutions precisely because there's a problem. Otherwise, be here. And so it matters that we understand what the problem is. Normally, when we talk about gender-based violence, because it's about power, we assume that it only affects women who are junior, who are younger. It's as if you're senior, you're safe. And I want to say gender-based violence actually affects also women who are in power. I mean, I've been in experiences where a man in the presence of another man who is a colleague touched me inappropriately. And what makes it difficult when you are a woman in a position of power is, how do I attend to this? Because first of all, I'm the one to resolve the problems of others. I'm the one to make it happen, and so on. And the assumption is that because I have power, who's going to believe that this person who is seen as being not as powerful as I am as Vice Chancellor, they cannot do that. All right. And it's a very tricky situation. So the experience that I had is that I wrote a WhatsApp to this other man who's senior, and we worked together. And I said, I did not like the way he touched me. He asked my number. I said, he must ask you, but I'm asking you not to give him. And the man just kept quiet, never responded. I still have the WhatsApp, no response. And the issue is that as much as I can walk away, I ask myself, I mean, why am I having difficulty reporting this? And of course, I'm saying, who do I report it to? To my chair of board, and to my chair of council, of course, in the university. Do I report it there? Will I be believed? I mean, I'm senior after all. Can I just, and then it worries me, because I say, if I, as a senior woman, feels this way, how much more of someone who's junior? If I feel that everyone see me, I've got a strong personality, I'm confident, I've got a CV, I've got a position, and I'm saying, is anyone going to believe me? And it's these two men. The colleague introduced me to this one. It will be 2 against 1. The other one will say, no, but there was no touching. But the point is, I felt the touching. Who's going to believe me? And what do the rest of the country say? How can this woman not just tell him to stop? Why does he want, so you live with it, but it's actually, and of course it's about power, and power is not only hierarchical. Power is not just about position. We've got social power, cultural power that comes with being a man, a power of privilege that comes with a man. And that's what position doesn't give you.
So I find this very fascinating because, as you say, women experience discrimination all along the chain, even at the very top where you've been. And I know that in my previous chat with you, we spoke about how when you put a woman in these positions, you can't just throw her to the sharks, that the violence of gender inequality is actually another form of violence against women. So if you appoint a woman to a very high profile position, and I've been in this position before as well, you can't just leave her there and wish her luck. You have to support her all along the way, especially when she's at the top where she's at her most vulnerable. I mean, the story you tell is quite terrifying. It calls to mind, I know it might be a silly example, but Taylor Swift had a similar experience where someone touched her, and apparently she really struggled with whether to take it to court and to pursue it because she's seen as being so powerful. So you're seen as being so powerful. Who do you go to when you're seen as being so powerful?
Exactly. And when it comes to the gender inequality, I talk about gender inequality as violent. It's another form of gender-based violence. And this is how it happens. You get appointed as a woman, and then everybody celebrates, and there you are on your own. If men don't come on board to support you, if you don't have the support, actually success is almost impossible. And if you look at the history of many women who fail, I mean, most of the time, they're capable, technically, professionally capable, whatever. They fall, as I say, at the altar of personality. Okay, so it's almost like when you get appointed as a woman, you've got to be some kind of a man, and then we will. I mean, I've been criticized for hosting a function, an award function for my dress, because
we all remember that incident, and we all remember how ridiculous it was.
And the issue is that I don't even have a cleavage because I'm too small, right? We could have focused on that, and they said, "There she goes," whatever. But if it were a man, and by the way, in the same function, there were men with shorts.
Oh wow, that did not come out.
In the pictures, nobody said anything. I was wearing a very dressy dress for an evening dress, right?
Yeah.
And you focus because you're a woman, and suddenly you've got to explain. I've been told that I'm too colorful, my earrings are too big, and all of that. It's almost like, and then you're told that you're too loud, you're too this, you're too motherly, you're too whatever.
Too motherly.
Yeah, too motherly is a problem. And then also another critique against women is that they lack executive gravitas. I mean, someone must tell me what executive gravitas is. I mean, you clearly don't get it by experience or by achieving. It's declared. Some men have to decide you've got executive gravitas. And I'm saying, of course, there are many men who are supportive. The reason we are here is because of those who don't support. And when you find yourself in an environment where, as a Black woman, you have to deal with racialized discrimination and gender-based discrimination, it's completely violent, completely. There's ageism, there's racism, and there's gender-based, there's gender inequality. You have to deal with all of that. So when women get into the high, and when you're in at the highest level, by the way, you have to make it happen for others. So everyone is looking at you. So you basically, most of the time, you are lonely. And of course, because of your level, the majority of people at your level are men.
Yeah.
They're men. You can count in the country how many vice chancellors are women, right?
So let me come in there about them being men, right? I think it's such a great point, because I've definitely experienced that. And, I often see pictures of powerful women surrounded by men mostly. And I think you've amazingly captured the problem here that faces women even at the very top. So I want to just hand over to Punki now. And Punki, you have obviously also experienced sexism and racism, and you and I have discussed this in our chats previously, but you've also had the experience where, and I've had this too, where there's been men who have actually come alongside to help you on your path. And we're going to talk more about solutions later, but perhaps you can just give us a little bit of your own story in this space and how you've experienced sexism and its reverse. Oh, I'm so sorry, Punki, I think you're muted. Would you mind unmuting your mic? Yeah. Can you hear? I can't hear her. I think it's the blue button, the blue little microphone. Do you want to try that again at the top? Yeah, there we go. We can hear you now.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Varashni. So I think from my side, it's a very tricky situation that we're dealing with, the issue of gender-based violence. So one needs to just take a step back and look at, where it's all coming from. I think, in order for us to be able to effectively understand it and also, start to become part of the solution to some of the challenges that, we, particularly as women, face. If I take a step back, in the main, I mean, gender-based violence or, an equal, ecosystem for women and men was created over centuries. So it's an old age problem that we are dealing with. And it's proving to be exceedingly very stubborn to deal with. However, like the Professor, I think, has already touched on it briefly, that, it is a tricky situation in the sense that there are men, out there who have got the ability, to push us forward and also, enable the creation of a level playing field or platform for both men and women. So if I look at, my own experience and, growing up, largely when I finished matric, as Black families generally, you tend to find that, you pushed to find a job immediately after matric. And it was at that point, like where my family was really struggling and they were looking forward, to almost the second matriculant in the family to find a job and be able to take care of the rest of the family. So fortunately, I managed to find a job, as a personal assistant. And interestingly, I worked for a guy, Mr. Mkunu, at that point in time. And he actually was the one that realized that I've got a greater potential to do more than just, a personal assistant job. And she said to me, "Punki, you are such a smart young girl at some point, and why don't you consider, going to varsity and maybe improving yourself?" And then he helped me through the Equal Opportunities Center. to find a bursary. I found a bursary, and then the following year I had to drop off work at that point and then go and study. And I studied. And if I look back at that experience, for me, it demonstrates that there are a lot of good men that hold the key to opening up opportunities and avenues to create a balanced playing field. And in my view, sitting where I am today, I wouldn't be had it not been for him. And then also, when I look at, my husband from a home point of view, my husband is very traditional, African man. But when it comes to issues of my career and how I wanted to advance it, he's always been there for me, behind me, pushing me hard, and also saying to me, you know what, you can do it. I know you're a smart girl, So from that point of view, is he has helped me to a large degree to get to where I am. And I mean, I got married at a very young age. I was still at varsity. I was still at varsity when I got married. But he was there every step of the way. I mean, there are points in time where, on weekends, he would just let me just be myself, do what I want to do from a career progression point of view. And then even if I look, at Absa as an example, and I look at, how difficult the environment, was for me when I started working for Absa and, trying to fit into a culture that was multidimensional in the sense that at that point in time, we had, Barclays largely calling the shots. And a lot of the culture that they wanted to infuse within the organization was more like an English, London-based type culture, and then at the same time is I had lots of white males in the main, who were sitting in senior positions that really, nurtured me through the process and making sure that, I can wrangle and deal with some of the complexities of dealing, with the cultural diversity that we find ourselves having to deal with. I mean, there's one instance where, I remember some of the guys coming out of, so there's a guy coming from New York, very difficult guy, and telling me that, you know what, if you're not comfortable, to do what you needed to do at that point in time, you may as well just, it's your prerogative, take your bags, move on, and a lot of the guys, interestingly, and both, African as well as white, they actually stood behind me and they said, she's going nowhere. You are going to change your ways because we believe that, this lady has got a lot of potential. And today I'm sitting in the position that I'm in purely because of such people. So I think
I would say it is also because of your own work, right? So I would say that they played an amazing role in opening doors. But I almost think we're at a point where men should do that. They should just generally do that. I think you've outlined a wonderful scenario where men are, confident and free enough in who they are to empower those alongside them. I just want to quickly note, because there's such beautiful comments coming through in the comment section. Zanele says she thanks both of you, and especially Professor Phakeng, for articulating her struggle so passionately. A lot of women saying that they identify with having had inappropriate touching and not knowing what to do afterwards, similar to Prof. Phakeng. To those watching and who are feeling, kind of triggered around that, at the end of this discussion, we're going to have some numbers you can call for help, some networks you can plug into as a woman trying to make it to the top. So stay with us. And yeah, a lot of people saying that, a lot of men in here saying, how many other men are here in this discussion? And a lot of men putting up their hands saying, I'm here too. So Punki, absolutely correct. And Punki, I love what you say about these two men, your husband and this other mentor type figure who helped you, because I've had a similar experience. And unfortunately, I've recently had more women support me, but at the beginning of my career, I had that typical pull her down syndrome. And the people who were opening the doors for me were men. And that made me sad, and that made me feel, how do I as a woman act differently when I am in a position of power? So I'm going to throw it back to Prof. Phakeng now as we enter the kind of solutions phase of our discussion. Prof, in our discussion previously, you mentioned that your biggest supporters in council are often the woman, the Black woman. Tell us about that, and tell us how you also empower other women and how men can learn from that to become like the men in Punki's example.
Yeah, thanks for the Russian. I want to mention one complexity in this thing, right? I mean, you see, I'm an academic, and I'm so glad that in my academic journey, my supervisor for my research has always been a woman. I'm so glad in retrospect, because I realized the women who succeed, who have been promoted, supervised by men, there's always chit-chat that they slept their way through.
Oh.
And that's one complexity that even when women succeed. So I'm so lucky, okay? That's not to say men don't succeed. What I'm saying is, even if you succeed with a man, sometimes there's a doubt. So we live in a very complex world. But the question that you are asking is about what are the solutions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We can just dive into that topic.
Yes. I think the first solution is to disrupt.
Yeah.
To disrupt the old boys network. Every man belongs to a boys network. Wittingly or unwittingly, they are part of it. They don't even have to sign up. They get roped in. And it's interesting how patriarchy works, right? When we fight racism, we're together on the same side. Once we as with men, once we get to gender, it all crumbles. Once we get to trans issues of the trans community, it all breaks up. And we don't face these things seriously. So we've got to disrupt the old boys club. But how do you do that? When I took office as VC, one of the things that I did, disrupting the old boys net, I decided, looking at the people, the top scholars in the university. I mean, we are a top university. Who are the top scholars? And they're mainly men and they're white. And I thought, they're doing a good job for the university, whatever. Will they be here in the next 5 to 10 years? Some of them will retire when you look at the age. And then I do proactively. And of course, they're part of the boys club. How do you disrupt this? So I decided to start a program called 2030 Future Leaders.
Nice.
With the idea of who are the people who will be future leaders in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah. And to do that, I said, we're going to select them on merit. I don't want to impose any transformation imperative.
Nice.
The people who have, in the country, in South Africa, we've got a rating system for researchers. And for people, rating for young people who they have to be 35 years or younger. And there's ratings for older people, 35 years or younger, and they can get, if they are future leading scholars, they get what they call a P rating. Okay, a P, because you can have other ratings. So and in the country, we at UCT have got more than half of those people in the country. So I selected those people, and I told, at the moment, the country has got about 16, and the whole country, and 8 of them are at UCT, no other university, 8 of them, right? And then I took, of course, the ratings expire every 5 years. I took the ones who also had a P rating the last 3 years. Remember, it's about age and about rating is an international process, peer review system. I selected them. You know the interesting thing, Varashni? They were diverse. First of all, they are dominantly women.
Yeah.
I've got 15. And about 12 of them are women.
Sure.
And on merit, by the way. I chose them on merit.
So it was blind selection. It was a blind selection.
Yeah. It's just, I just said to the colleagues in the research, just give me the people who are rated P, and the ones who are rated P the last 3 years. Don't exclude anyone. They brought the list. And what I did then, created this, and then we have a targeted, tailor-made support program for them. So what is it that you need? How do we make sure that you become the leading scientist that you are destined to be? All right. Sure. And the third thing is, we want you to produce people like yourself. So we support you so that you can supervise students and mentor students to be like you, right? And interesting what they asked for. First of all, by the way, it's interesting that it's mainly women. And I asked myself, has it been this way all along? And then we lose the women because there's no focused support. Second interesting thing is, when you say, how do we support them? One of them said, I'm a scientist. I've just had 2 children. I need lab time, but I'm supposed to teach. Of course, I don't mind teaching, but I'm not gonna be the scientist that I want to be because I have to be. So, and then I said, fine, that's the problem. Give me the solution. She said, give me at least every year, give me 1 term free of teaching.
Nice. Okay.
why is your department not doing that? Says, no, in the department, that's not allowed.
Because they were mostly men.
But that's when you intervene.
Yeah.
That's when we intervene to make that. And then the other one said, I've got 2 small kids. Me and my husband are scientists. We are both mathematicians. We go to same conferences, but we can't. One of us has to say, and it's often me because the children.
Yeah.
And what do you need? Well, if I get support to travel with my children, by the way, in other countries they do that. If I get support to travel with the children, at least for the 1 main conference per year, it will help.
It's amazing how it's such a simple thing. It just acknowledges you as a human being. And you know, it helps men and women to acknowledge you as a human being, not as an isolated worker with no family.
Yeah, but here's the last thing about disrupting the boys' club. So you get to get focused solutions, but also the executive meets with these future leaders, 2030 future leaders, every term. So, by the way, when you get into a position of power, the people who proactively make appointments to come and see you are inevitably men. They come, they make an appointment to come and see you. When they come, they make requests, they tell you about their project.
They're confident.
And then I remember one day stopping to the other one, I said, it's a wonderful project that you're doing. But I'm wondering, are there no women who are doing what you're doing? Because no woman comes and says, Prof, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've achieved, this is whatever. And then we get surprised when men get the support. They boldly come to your office. So, and I pose the question to them, but you're disrupting. The executive meets with these young future leaders. They get the lion's share of the executive's time. They can talk to us about the future university that they want to see. They can talk to us about their projects. They don't have to stand in the queue. And that sort of shakes the boys' club a little.
Let's bring Punki into this discussion. And I want to encourage both of you to jump in whenever you want to. You don't have to wait for me to bring you in. I'd love to have you guys interact with each other as well. And the chats, I'm just loving the chats coming from the audience. Thank you so much, guys. We'll get to them a bit later. But people saying, how do we disrupt these all boys networks? How do we create this world where women can have children and not feel like, oh, that's going to set me back so dramatically in my career, right? I just had a child recently and I felt that way immediately. And I know that Punki, this is something that you're passionate about, right? You're passionate about how something as simple as banking can empower people, to empower women specifically, to be more economically active. So tell us some of your solutions and maybe just respond to Prof's point about the boys network, because it sounds like you have disrupted that all boys network. How did you do it?
Yeah, I think to Prof's point is, for me, the obvious opportunity cost, for humanity has been the lack of leadership, to be quite honest. And I think critical to that is that if I look at, COVID-19 and the situation that we find ourselves in, this is like an unprecedented time. And when I look back at, how ecosystems or, how environment in the world is changed, generally it is in times of, significant need that you find that, people generally are more open to change. If you look at a situation like, in 2001 in the US, when we had the invasion taking place, subsequent to that, there was significant change, that took place in terms of how we travel, through airlines, etc. And in my mind is from where I'm sitting is that we've got an obvious opportunity that we need to be intentional around, how we as women utilize going forward. So the rate at which, we are digitizing, my sense is it's beginning to open up, new opportunities for women and also, for the world, I would say at large. If I listen to the conversation that we've just been having, for me, the one obvious opportunity I can think of is that in the past, when you look at, where generally the gap arises between men and women, it arises at the stage when women, have to start having kids and then they must start raising kids. But the obvious opportunity that I'm seeing with digitization and with the fact that now we have been tested to work from home. I mean, right now we're sitting at home and we're having this conversation. So digitization is creating those kind of opportunities for us. So in my mind is going forward, really the need for maternity and how we think about, staying at home during your time of gestation, is going to significantly change, because now I can do, my work whilst I'm at home. For the first time in a number of years, I've had to sit and assist, my kid at home with all the homework, which is something I've not done. In the past, I've largely outsourced that activity to the teachers. Now I've had to do it. And digitization has allowed me to do my work whilst at the same time, I can focus on helping my child with his schoolwork. So for me, there's opportunities that are created. And if I take it to the world of work, from a banking point of view, we are digitizing significantly, and we're accelerating the investments that we are putting into digitization to allow customers the opportunity to, engage with the bank at any point in time. If I look, pre-COVID, you are almost confined to a space where you have to engage with the bank between 8 and 3. So as a mother, you've got to make sure that you fit in the bank during that time to go and see them. Whereas today with digitization, you can almost, have a conversation or do whatever banking transaction you want to do at your own convenience and at any point in time. If it's at 12 midnight that you want to, do a transaction, you can do that transaction. So for me, is a new ecosystem is actually, opening up new opportunities. And this is the time when we as women can just sit back and say, how do we, take charge of this opportunity and create a more equal or balanced economy. And in my mind is, as I said earlier on, the key thing also is for us to be clear also to men that they also hold the key towards creating a more balanced platform for everyone to thrive. If I look at the world and the disparities that we are dealing with today, we're dealing with the disparities because we have removed from mainstream economy a significant proportion of women, and whether we like it or not, women are the majority across the world. And if we start to open up more opportunities to women, my sense is we will start to also, close the gap, the poverty gap between, nations. And so my view is digital is absolutely
leveling the playing field. I think that's so true. In fact, we've had someone speak to both your and Prof's point just now in the comment section. I just want to read it out. It's Chantal Peck, who says, to an extent, current remote working arrangements, like you've said, have helped to disrupt the boys' club. Golf, hunting, bar meetings are off the cards. How do we take advantage of this? So I think that's quite interesting. But to the audience, we
should remember, Rashni, that the lockdown situation has also put pressure on women. Because it's the women in many families who now have to teach, nanny, cook, and still do the office work.
It's also insane.
So we need the transformation at the home as well. That daddy must teach. Africa is not.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the story of Punki's husband supporting her. I'm going to out him quite badly here. The guy who organizes from the Mail and Guardian, Tulani, is a wonderful guy. Every time I've been talking to him ahead of this conversation, I've heard his 10-month-old baby, or 8-month rather, cry because his wife is an essential worker. So she's out there, he's at home with the kids. I've said, do you have a nanny? He goes, no, I love being with them and doing my work. So we need more men like that. Just quickly to the audience. We have polls that are running. We've got 2 polls that are running just to get your views. The first one has just concluded. I just want to read the results out. And the question was, what do you believe has hindered women most in the workplace? Like which factor? And we gave you 3 options: disproportionate childcare responsibilities, which is something we're just talking about, pay gap, and a lack of opportunities. Do you ladies want to guess which one won that poll between pay gap, lack of opportunities, and childcare? What do you think, Prof? Which one do you think got the most votes?
I mean, the results are here, so I'm
confident. Oh, you saw it? Oh, dear.
I mean, no. I just clicked. So I can see the results. It's not fair.
Oh, no, you're cheating now. I mean, but you're very integrity. That was a lot of integrity right there. So the result, the one that got the most votes with 41% was lack of opportunities. So I think that's a really key one. People said, yes, childcare responsibilities, yes, the pay gap. But I'm seeing also in the comments, a lot of people saying, those opportunities just aren't there for women. So now I want to move to the next part of the discussion, which is the swapping of tips. Just practical things that you would suggest to women who want to get ahead in the workplace, who want to overcome the violence of gender inequality and even actual, gender violence, such as I'm seeing a lot of comments about sexual favors being asked for in exchange for work. So what are the tips that you ladies have to offer? Let's start with you, Prof. Phakeng, and then go on to Punki, if that's okay.
I mean, I'll start with the professional one. I think you have to network with other women, make the advance, and learn how to be a mentee. Some people I get a lot of requests for women to say young women to say I should mentor them and whatever. And I find that the ones who succeed under my mentorship are the ones who know how to be a mentee. They take over the situation because they've asked me, I'm busy, right? So I'll make the time, but you must set up the agenda. You must set up the agenda. You must take ownership if you want that. If you want to get ahead and you want another woman to hold your hand. And when it comes to the boardroom, because there is a lot of this happening in the boardroom. I mean, I have learned the hard way. I think managing the violence against women in the boardroom, be a woman. Insist on being a woman. Don't try to be a man. I tried that. It doesn't work. You fail dismally because you'll be judged by men anyway, and you can never be a better man. Be a woman. If the situation is too hard, if they are getting on you, humiliating, bullying you in the boardroom, cry and run out. Go to the
really?
Go and cry in the toilet. It is okay.
Yes.
Because when you try to be a man, you'll get hugely punished because you'll never match up, actually. So do what you've known to do as a woman. You know how to do as a woman. It's uncomfortable. The tears are coming. Rather than saying the wrong thing, acting inappropriately, get out, go to the toilet, close the cubicle, have your meltdown, wipe, and go back. And tell them you couldn't take it. They'd rather say that you are weak in that way than say you are a drama queen when you call them to order, because you can't do it like men do it. You know, so I'm gonna say be authentically a woman. There's power in that, even as they want to look down on it. Just do it properly. Don't cry in front of them, whatever. Walk out, go to the bathroom, do it there. In terms of approaches, I mean, I would say look the person in the eye. I mean, I told you about the situation about being touched. I wish I had stopped. And in retrospect, I thought about it. If anyone ever does that, the best way is to look them in the eye and say, stop it. I feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
I feel uncomfortable. And I think about it, I'm like, but I have the seniority. I could have easily done that. As much as it felt uncomfortable, and that as much as he could easily by the way, the fear is that he can turn it around because he doesn't have my seniority. He'll turn it around and say, I bullied him. Okay, when I say, stop it.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to figure out a way to do that. And then I can say, I can switch on my phone on the recording and I can say, stop it, because phones can quickly these days.
That's so interesting.
Because he can turn around. They turn around because of your seniority. They say bullied them. When you're actually calling people to order for doing inappropriate things.
Actually record it so that they can't turn around and say she shouted at me. Because I've often had junior men, when I've had a woman who's managed them come to me and say, she's bullying me. And I was like, did she raise her voice? No. Did she shout at you? Did she personally insult you? No. What did she do? Oh, she just told me I was doing something wrong. And I was like, that's not bullying. You're just not used to being told by a woman what to do. So I love this idea. Record your interaction so that they can't turn it around and say, she raised her voice, she got hysterical, and use that against you. Yeah.
I had done once, and I asked the man, do you mind if I record this? And because but this one wasn't sexual violence. He was in a high, he said, yeah, you can record it. And I put the record, and he kept going, calling me names, BISTCH, and what. And then he went back to his office. I think he thought about it, and he thought, this is hectic. He wrote me a very long letter. And by the way, in the rant and raving, he was promising to start a grievance against me. And then when he thought about it, he realized actually he was out of order. He's going to have a problem. And I did ask him, can I record this? He said, yes. But if it's violence, if it's sexual violence, I'm sorry, I'm going to record it without telling you, because I want to.
I think you're right to do that.
order. So I'm just gonna press record and say, "Excuse me, don't touch me."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what to say. Maybe you apologize or whatever you do, or I don't know, but I'll record it.
And I just want to say to the people who are chatting here about having been solicited for sexual favors in return for jobs, I would hope that workplace cultures are changing to the point where you can out that person to HR and publicly if you have to, if no one is helping you internally. I just want to throw it back to Punki. I wish we had double the time we had.
Plus all the time in here. I think I'll use an analogy. If you look at my hand, I hope you can see.
Yeah, we can.
The hand has got 5 fingers, and the hand is not effective when it's missing 1 finger. Yes. So you need all 5 fingers for this hand to be effective. And for me, it talks to diversity, and ecosystems. Any ecosystem, for it to be effective, it's got to take its component parts and you pull it together, and that's how you get, the greater sum of the parts working. It comes back to issues of diversity. Unless you embrace diversity, we are always going to be suboptimal. So in terms of, tips that I would give to people is that you always have to, as an individual, stay true to yourself. When you're a woman and you're soft, that's what you bring on the table. That's the diversity that you bring on the table, because you do need, softness within, that context that you find yourself in. So the important thing is that you've got to know yourself, and to Prof's point, be authentic to yourself. Don't try and be who you are not, because that's where you are going to fail and fail dismally. But when you bring your authentic self on the table, you will make an insurmountable difference to the quality of the conversation that you have at any given moment in time. And I think for me, the other important thing is that people generally talk about the sky being the limit. The sky is not the limit. The sky is definitely not the limit. You limit yourself. You've got to knock on every door for opportunities. And don't be scared to lay yourself out there, as long as you know what you want to achieve. There is nothing wrong with being overly ambitious. Generally, some of us as women, we tend to think that there's something wrong with being ambitious. When you look at men, generally, they will come to you, especially I see it now in senior position, and they will tell you that this is what I want. And less women do that. And from my side, I would encourage women to take that opportunity and use it, because that's how you open up opportunities for yourself. Tell people about what you want. Don't be scared to say, I actually want Prof's job, in 5 years time, if that's what you want.
Women are afraid of being ambitious. That's totally true. Punki, there's a question here, and I'm loving the tips, but I'm aware that there's, not much time left, and there's so many great questions. So while you're on this topic, Punki, Denise Slabbert has asked, how can corporates deal with GBV, gender-based violence issues in the workplace from a best practice and company policy point of view? I think that's an important question. And as a woman who's, chaired, women forums and been in such a senior position, what do you advise corporates to do?
For me, it's having those conversations and have them in an honest way. It doesn't help, to have conversations that are unauthentic. So it always has to be the authenticity that you bring into the conversation. And then also make sure that as part of your policies, you change your policies once you've had the conversations, because it's also not worth it, to have talk shops. The important thing also is that the people that sit around the table and have those conversations, they've got to make sure that there is policy changes that are effected to unlock those doors and opportunities. If I look at the women forum that we have, I always encourage the people that form part of that women forum that you guys do not underestimate yourself. If you've got determination and you've got ambition, talk about it. Let us know, because how opportunities generally arise, Virashni, is that is through, conversations, that there's an opportunity that comes up. And if I know in my mind that, I remember Virashni once said, this is what I want,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Go to Verashni at that point in time and say, Verashni, here's an opportunity that has come up. Are you still interested?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. For me, it is important for us to not be shy about what we want to achieve and where our ambitions, want to take us. And when opportunities come, I can tell you from where I'm sitting, people will think of you. And this is what men generally do. They talk about these things openly. And when opportunities come, they do say, oh, I remember so-and-so. And also, so-and-so is so good at this thing. So for me, it's all about
articulate, right?
And articulate what you want. And if people know, they will always, look after you. So you shouldn't be scared to articulate what you want as an individual.
But the reality is that women are, right? And women are not confident in doing that. And women, in my experience of managing women, tend to doubt themselves far more than men and are much more shy about putting forward their ambitions and desires. Which brings me to, and I want to just say to the audience...
Can I just come in, Verashni, before you...
Yeah.
On? I think that the other piece that women always need to be consciously aware of is perfectionism can be an enemy.
It is totally an enemy.
It can be a big enemy. And, you've got to make sure that if you can do something and get it 80% right, it's still good enough. It doesn't have to be 100% right.
No men would be happy with 60%, let me tell you. No, I have such a problem with that. And I think... what do they say? Perfection is the enemy of good enough, or good, or something like that. Like often women get paralyzed. I can't tell you how many women have come into my office thinking that they're a complete mess. They haven't done well enough, and they've actually done better than their male counterparts. Which leads me to my next question, and I want to say to the audience, please drop your questions in the chat box if you have any more as we start drawing towards the last sort of 15 minutes of this conversation. I'm just going to display it to the room. It's from David LaRose. What role does personality have in women taking opportunities? And that just comes to the discussion Punki was just saying about, put forward your desires, put forward your ambitions. And it also says something to what Prof said earlier, which is that women are sacrificed at the altar of personality, which is a fascinating comment. So Prof, will you answer David's question for us? What role does personality have in women taking opportunities?
A huge role. For me, at the bottom, it's great. When you're it's great. Personality, my passion, my enthusiasm, because I'm delivering and I go for it. I did what Punki said. And I grab every opportunity, milked it to the team.
Yeah.
Right? And that's personality that makes you do that. You get to the top. But I'm at the point that I've been doing a reflection this year. What are the things that got me here as a poor Black woman who's school under a tree? Basically, I'm a survivor. Basically, Verashni, I'm a miracle. I wasn't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Mathematics, from under the tree, 8 schools in 12 years of basic education. And here I am, right? Mother, domestic work and so on. Miracle. And I've been saying, what are the things that got me here that no longer work?
Yeah.
That were good when I was younger, and they are not working. So how do you change shift? And it's quite an interesting thing to learn. So there's things at this level that aren't working. So being explicit, too gung-ho about what I want doesn't work at this level.
Really?
Yeah. Because I'm already at this level. There's something about, because in the institution I'm the top, right? What are the things? People love so you get a lot of people who love what you are. They actually, and in a university, by the way, to be vice chancellor, you don't only get selected by the selection committee. There's voting that happens. You must get to the majority. And then a vote is a vote against. It's rough to get.
Yeah.
And anyway, they can fire you anytime. If Senate decides they don't want you, they can pass a vote of no confidence. It's like politics.
My gosh.
You have to be an academic, you've got to be an executive, and then you've got to be a politician and win people by persuasion. Yeah. Now, personality, suddenly, my strong, bubbly, passionate personality has come to the focus.
Yeah.
And I'm critiquing it. What is it?
Yeah.
That is an issue here. And it's an interesting thing. And I think at every level of your career, I don't want to stop being who I am.
No.
I don't want to stop being who I am. I want to continue being who I am. But But what are the things that I can silence in some instances, showcase in other instances? I don't know. So I'm working on that. So personality plays a huge role, because as a woman, you get judged on it. It works for you, and then it gets to a point where suddenly I'm supposed to be this quiet person who has got
mother figure. Like sometimes I feel the assumption that you should be nurturing.
And who's happy just to cut ribbons? I mean, I'm nurturing, but I go to the residencies, I see what students do. That adds a lot of power to my job. I interact with students. I get to know the students' queries before they become a crisis.
Yes.
As much as it works, there are people who are critiquing it. Why is he spending too much time? Why? Because no vice chancellor has done it. Why? Because many of these vice chancellors are men. They don't work that way.
And why? Because we're recreating the world we live in, right? I think this is what you and me are saying. We have come to a disruption, and this is what this webinar is about. We've come to a disruption. COVID has disrupted this world.
Absolutely.
The powerful forces out there are going to rebuild this world. We need to position ourselves as women to demand that it is rebuilt with us in mind this time round. Because it was not built with us in mind. What you're describing, the Vice Chancellor job was built with the man in mind.
Exactly.
So, Punki, I want to come to you, and I'm just loving this conversation, but I want you to just ask another question from the audience. How do we recreate this world, Punki? You're passionate about this. You're passionate about saying, you know what, there's a disruption that's happened. We're now going to recreate the world and make it holistic and sustainable and humane. And it sounds wonderful, but practically, how do we do it? And Solomon has asked, how do you teach men to respect women and work with them as equal partners in the workplace? So Punki, give us your thoughts on that.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So I think for me, Verashni, it's critical for people to be intentional, you know, at best of time. Because if you're not intentional, you can be rattled very quickly. So that is the one thing that is very, very important. And then in terms of respect, to be quite honest, respect for me, particularly from a man point of view, is that we as society have a role to play in terms of teaching, you know, especially maybe young boys, you know, the importance of love and self-love. If you don't love yourself, you'll never love another human being. That's the core essence of it. So I can't emphasize it more, you know, the importance of society really playing a critical role in ensuring that as we raise our kids, we raise them, you know, in a space where they can experience love. It forms the core essence of everything that we need to do. And unfortunately, when people have grown up, it's very difficult to change a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 40-year-old. It's difficult. And people need to make a conscious choice and a conscious decision, you know, that this is how they want to be. I mean, if I think about, you know, bullies, it's a choice that they make, that they want to bully other people. You know, it's people who don't sit back and self-reflect on their ways of being. You know, am I being the human that I should or I'm expected to be? So I think for me, it's all about, you know, at the end of the day, you as a human being you've got to start by respecting yourself before you respect other individuals. If you don't respect yourself, unfortunately, no one else is going to teach you how to respect other people. So that's the difficulty of it. But where as a society we can play a role is as we raise our kids, let's raise them with love and respect.
I think that's so important. And I think that speaks to not just gender, but a more humane world that's gentle on the environment, gentle on our resources, gentle on people. And I think this is what we all have to start pushing towards. We've got to grab this opportunity to start pushing towards that world. I have one more question. We have time for one more question, and then I'm going to get to closing statements. And I think, Prof, if you don't mind taking this one, I'm going to just broadcast to the room. It's by Lorraine. She says, sometimes there are policies in place which can simply be ignored. Any tips for effectively addressing gender equality in a way that does not leave you vulnerable or being penalized? Your recording the conversation was one example. Any others?
I'm trying to understand.
Let me help with the policy question. I mean, from where I'm sitting is that policies function within a context. Context has changed. It's up to us to really change policies. So policy for me is an excuse. Let me say so. Because the context has changed, you can always change policy. Policies are created by human beings.
How do you do that as a junior? I worked in an environment which was very toxic for women, and there wasn't actually a sexual violence policy. I don't know if there was one. And when women complained about being, touched inappropriately, not much was done. They were expected to come forward and do it very publicly. It's violent towards the women themselves. So how do junior women push for policy to be changed?
I mean, I think you see, in an organization, you need structures that are pro-women, that can critique these policies routinely, because sometimes policies are used to protect certain people. So if you're violated by a very influential person in an organization, you can be silenced. Not only silenced, you can be penalized. So in a way, we need in organizations to have committees that are looking at gender inequality. They constantly looking at policies. In my view, in my environment, policies have to be reviewed every 3 years because situations change. Especially in this environment, there's got to be constant relook at policies. And if they don't work for one situation, it's got to be reworked.
Yeah, we're coming to the end, ladies, powerful women. I don't know if you like the term ladies. We're coming to the end. I've loved so much of what you guys have had to say. I think there's so much that needs to be unpacked sooner. Maybe we can lobby Absa and Mel and Garden to have a round 2 where we can unpack some of these issues some more, because there's more comments coming out about personality. How do introverts deal? And I can say, quite openly that, Prof, you seem to be an extrovert and you've done really well, but introverts too can go really far. And we see Punki, who is has a different style of engaging, different style of communication, and she's gone very far. So I definitely think introverts can also, if they communicate well, as Punki has said, with their ambitions and what they want to do, they can go very far too. But I just want to wrap up now. We unfortunately can't take any more questions, but I want to just do some closing comments and anything you feel that you might have been missed. Let's throw back to you, Punki, and anything you want to say as we close up this amazing discussion.
I think for me, final closing comments is people must always remember the sky is not the limit. Sky is not the limit. We are the ones that drive the change. It's all within our powers to drive the change that we want.
I mean, can you just expand that for just 30 seconds more? As someone who's watching this right now, who just feels so insecure, who doesn't feel who feels very limited, what is one thing they can do right now? Because you seem like a woman who has made that breakthrough, understanding that the limits are just in her mind. What is that one thing that someone who's watching can do to perhaps get on that journey?
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Talk to people. Introverts actually think that they are in a much better space, in the sense that they form very deep relationships. And spoke to the importance of relationships. Introverts form very deep relationships and have those conversations one-on-ones, and then you learn more from people. And don't be shy. Put yourself out there. Opportunities will come your way.
Thank you, Punki. And I think you are just a model of that. You're a model of someone who has, with integrity, risen to the top and bringing others, you're lifting as you rise, bringing other women with you as you go. And I absolutely love it. So thank you for your input in the session. Prof. Phakeng, your final closing remarks.
I want to say something that I say to myself all the time. And I said a little bit of it today. And it's, you have to be who you are. Don't apologize for who you are. And I say to myself, don't apologize for being fabulous, because that's who you are. If anyone own who you are. Own warts and all. There's a good reason. You have that personality, that energy, that passion, and
unfortunately, Prof. Phakeng again.
Run with it.
Run with who you are, own who you are, be authentic. And from the comments, I'm hearing that people are really resonating with that. I think you guys can see with Prof. Phakeng and Punki, they've been who they are. They've owned who they are. They've owned their ambition. Don't be afraid to own your ambition as a woman. Don't be afraid to own your space. If you've been violated, own your space. You deserve better. You do not deserve what just happened to you. Go and report it. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up this wonderful conversation. I've had such fun with these women. I've had such fun with the commenters and everyone in the comment section. We're going to be trying to unwrap all of this more. I think the Mel and Garden might have an article on some of these comments, so thanks for commenting. We're going to end off with a slide that just shows you guys a little bit of where you can go and get help. But before I go, I just want to read out the results of our last poll. Our last poll was, what has prevented women from pursuing bigger things in their career? And the sad one was having to choose raising kids over career came out as the top reason. And I think that we have learned in this discussion how we can bring men in to help us do that and how we can also start splitting the load more. So hopefully that will help us going forward. Thank you, ladies. Thank you to the audience. Goodbye, everyone.
Rashni, thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
to Punki. Thanks to
Bye.
Absa and Gadia.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.